that is to read, but you'll see that section 17 refers simply to a person, whereas both section 19 and the section from the Commonwealth Act refer to a person or class or group of persons, so they're broader in their scope. I think section 17 is really limited to cases of bullying, where a person's targeted because of an attribute they have, such as same gender attraction, that type of thing. I don't think it was ever intended that this section should apply to cases where statements are made about a group or a class, referring to which share these attributes, and a member of that group or class is offended. Yeah, it would have been very easy to simply add those words, person or group of persons, if that were the intention. The other thing about section 17, it is in a provision, section 17.2 refers to sexual harassment, which I think clearly is an individual thing, and you'd be very busy if you sexually harassed a class of people. But so I think its placing in the Act suggests too that it is limited to cases where an individual is targeted for having one of these attributes, rather than general statements about a class. But this raises the more interesting question. Why are we allowing state intervention in cases where the wrong done is simply to give offence? And I want to focus on giving offence rather than, say, section 19, where you're talking about inciting hatred or contempt, because the damage which inciting hatred or contempt can do to members of the group in question is clearly much more severe than merely giving offence. You want to change people's attitudes towards that class or group, and if you succeed, you're going to make their life more miserable. That's if you're inciting hatred or contempt. Similarly, intimidation is more serious because there is that implicit threat of violence, which is and neither of these features are there in cases where we're simply talking about offence. So section 17 is harder to justify than section 19, also I think harder to justify targeting offence rather than, say, intimidating behaviour. Now what makes it very interesting is if we look at some classic debates in the last century about the legalisation of gay sex, and this led to classic debates about the role of the state and of law. So Lord Devlin famously said, well, the fact that homosexual behaviour is extremely offensive to what he called the right-minded person is sufficient grounds for criminalising it. Where that level of offence caused leads to intolerance, indignation and disgust, you can't deny the right of the state to criminalise that behaviour. And reformers, Professor Hart, Professor Hughes, many others, made the point strongly that behaviour should not be punished merely because it offends others. That is not sufficient ground for state intervention. Okay, and that argument was essentially accepted. Merely causing offence, even if it leads to, the offence is so extreme it leads to attitudes of intolerance, indignation and disgust, to use Lord Devlin's words, is not a sufficient ground for state intervention. So this raises the question, what has changed? Why has causing offence become a ground of state intervention when there was almost a consensus that it shouldn't, certainly among those who favoured change, and the number of supporting those changes grew in the second half of the last century. Now, there is one distinction, I think, which is important, which might give some, you might see as giving some slight justification to the state intervening to punish or prohibit causing offence. Devlin argued that the state could intervene to stop offensive behaviour in order to maintain the status quo. Okay, he was about saying, okay, There need be no change if homosexual behaviour causes this really high level of offence. So maintain the status quo. Whereas, of course, the anti-discrimination law is, if you like, designed to prevent behaviour which is offensive to groups who are traditionally discriminated against. So Devlin wants to keep groups who are traditionally out, wants to keep them out. This is designed to bring them in. Now, but this still raises the question, is offence sufficient? So I think we need to ask, what do we actually do when we offend? Now, the dictionary definition is from the online one, but I think it's quite good, is if we offend, we cause to feel annoyed, we distress a person, we upset them, may make them resentful. Feelings, of course, these feelings are their reaction to our conduct. Okay, should the state intervene simply because reactions are predictable, which is effectively the criteria used in section 17, if you should, if it would be reasonable to realise that members of this group are going to be offended. Now, I think the state's starting to intervene in areas of offence because of two related changes in general social attitudes are driving it. The first is growing moral relativism, particularly in, I suppose, the crucial area in these debates in relation to sex and sexuality. Okay, nothing's right, nothing's wrong in this area, therefore people are free to choose, and there's no basis for condemning any choice they make. Where behaviour is neither right nor wrong, okay, there's complete freedom of choice. Now, the last century debates were not motivated by this relativism, or a lot of them wasn't anyway. Many who argued for law reform argued that it was not the role of the state to force people to be good. State intervention was not for that purpose, but was to prevent violence, it was to prevent fraud, to protect property, but not to make people good. Therefore, it was quite consistent for reformers to say homosexual behaviour is morally wrong, but it should not be punished. And Reverend Lance Armstrong, who was one of the drivers of homosexual law reform in Tasmania, put that view, I think, pretty strongly. Okay, now today, with the growth of moral relativism, okay, people have that freedom, but let's go on and have a look at the impact, I think, on moral relativism and conscience. We were watching a production of this 19th century novel the other day. And what struck me about it, I can't remember the name, my wife knows. But anyway, I think it was a Catherine Gaskell book, but leading characters are continually motivated by conscience to do things that they initially would not consider that they would do. And you get lots of appeals to moral principles to persuade this action, or they're considering a whole range of moral principles themselves, which leads them to change. Now, conscience, it seems to me, is really acting on moral principles. And we have relied on that as a means of social control, getting people to control their behaviour, develop, encourage the growth of moral principle in people, and then assume that they will act according to those principles in conscience. And it assumes the possibility of appealing, of moral argument about what is right and wrong. So appeals to conscience to get people to change their mind assumes a degree of moral objectivity. And if we're going to rely on conscience, we have to allow a degree of autonomy to the individual conscience and tolerate decisions made as a matter of conscience which we think are profoundly wrong. We have as a society to be prepared to do that. This is the price of using conscience as a means of social control. So it may lead people to do things we disagree with, or to claim exemption from general social obligations. And a famous one, of course, is Quakers and military service. Quakers are, by conscience, by definition, pacifists. Now, once you have a large degree of moral relativism, all this goes out the window because the person acting on conscience is not acting on moral principle at all. They're simply asserting their preferences, very often based more on emotion than reason. And they are asking that their preferences be privileged. And so we don't get argument these days, we get abuse. So if you condemn same-sex acts or you're against same-sex marriage, you're abused, you're simply homophobic. Acting out of emotions of fear and hatred rather than on moral principle. Because moral principles don't exist. That's the relativistic thing. And what's this leading to is a decline in the use of conscience as a means of social control and a tendency not to allow autonomy to the individual conscience. So in the Abortion Acts we get these provisions where a doctor has a conscientious objection to abortion, they must refer to a doctor who doesn't have that. No respect for the individual conscience, because this isn't a moral position, it's just their preference. So relativism, our views which we might claim are moral or merely preferences, we need to recognise that and stop condemning others whose preferences differ from ours. Social peace and harmony require that. So inclusion in this world of moral relativism tends to exclude those with strong views of right and wrong. Yeah, the inclusion, if you like, the tendency of inclusion to exclude people with strong religious views is not simply arbitrary, I think. I think it flows from this growth of moral relativism. Because these people with strong views of right and wrong simply want to impose their preferences on others. It's disrespectful, unjustifiable behaviour. If they refuse to remain silent, you've got to discipline them. Okay, and this leads to increased role for the state, because declining reliance on conscience as a means of social control, the coercive role of society must increase, necessarily grows. And we rely more on shaming as a means of social control. People must be shamed into acting in socially acceptable ways through anti-discrimination tribunals, etc., and through public outing and naming, homophobic or whatever. Now, my conclusion from all of this, with the growth of relativism and the decline in the role of conscience for freedom of religion, is not optimistic. As conscience declines, the importance of freedom of religion is likely to decline also, because it is an aspect of freedom of conscience. Okay, and what it leads to do, wrongly in the view of the relativist, is to lead people to claim that areas like sexuality are not simply open to choice. Asserting that it's not open to choice disrespects people's choices, as people appealing to conscience are only asserting a preference. There's no basis for privileging it or necessarily allowing them to do it, where it leads them to disrespect the choice of others.